I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dry Pink Dialogue. Still rounding in to regular season form, obviously. For the regular season games, we're set, but now that we're back in the preseason, we can make our preseason mistakes. Inter Miami, 2-1 victory against Independiente del Valle in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Interesting environment. Certainly felt like a preseason friendly. I don't know. Do you want to spend time like complaining about the lack of seriousness that this had? Or should we just acknowledge they had the same uniforms? They started an hour late. They didn't have great security at the end. Things like that. And then just sort of move on and talk about the game and then go on with the rest of the episode.
I was more miffed at the fact that it started almost an hour late. That kind of cuts into my entire evening. I'm ready for bed right now. And by the end of the game, I was basically a zombie staring at my screen, waiting for the game to be concluded while fans were running on the pitch. No, organization was really poor. It felt like a preseason game. It was a preseason game. The fact that it's happening 5 days after we've already played our first game of the season just feeds into the absurdity of the entire thing. At this point, let's just call this a fever dream and be done with it. I thought there were some interesting points from this game. Not for the long term as such, but we can talk about that. Overall, though, I think a bit of a non-factor, and we don't necessarily need to spend the rest of the hour this conversation talking about the game. We can talk about other things and what's coming up in the season. Preseason officially over.
And I think the theme that we've landed on over the last week is that it was a bust, and I don't think this changed anything about that.
This added to it, absolutely added to it.
Okay, let's just talk about the episode real quick. We're going to do our raw reaction for that game for the first half an hour or so, and then we're going to talk about some other topics, and this will be our sort of midweek episode for the week. Some things did happen this week that we haven't had a chance to address. Not seemingly going to sign any new players. Jorge Mas did say that at Media Day for this. And then I want to talk about Orlando City and Antoine Griezmann because I think that is super interesting for our arch rival to get a player of that caliber, and so we should talk about that. But first, let's get back to this game. Let me just go through the list. Ian Frey, Yannick Bright, Maxi Falcone, Noah Allen, Mikael, Segovia, Rodrigo de Paul, Allende, Bertarami, and Lionel Messi. I don't care if they played well, played poorly, played great, played terribly in this game. In my opinion, it means nothing for those 13 or 14 players. Add Facundo Mura as well. Because they're already in regular season mode. This is a total sort of relapse into doesn't really matter. Not starting, only playing 45 minutes, only playing 25 minutes, whatever it was. So for those 13 or 14 players, how they played does not matter to me at all. Do you feel strongly about what I just said?
No, absolutely not. I think there's a mindset once you start the season, especially when you play a game where nothing matters. The result doesn't matter. The consequences are nothing. You want to protect yourself and you want to protect your health. The fact that they got some minutes in their legs will be helpful, but that's about it. If that.
Yeah, I thought there was an opportunity to use this game for the starting core in terms of tandems. We talked about Mikael and Maxi Falcone. If they had played 60 minutes together, I think that could have been good for their communication. But that's not really what we saw. Same thing in the front line with like Messi and Bertarame is guys that if they had played more minutes together, it could have been great. It's not really what we saw, and the rest of it was kind of just meh. So here are my takeaways, and you stop me when you want to talk about something. First half, I thought Luis Suarez was the best player on the pitch from like a quality perspective. Didn't get on the ball as much as maybe you would have liked if it was a competitive game, but I think that's just because there were so many random pieces around him. Gets the assist on Santi Morales' goal. Probably a handball, but no VAR. So, and I think that's probably a foul on Bertarami in the box at the very end. So give us the first one. Don't give us the second one. We win 2-1 anyways. Second takeaway. Rocco Rios Novo, I thought, played really well. Not that that's a surprise, but I do think worth noting because he's not a player we've seen so much this preseason. Go ahead.
I'd like to stop there. I think that's a big point. Rocco Rios Novo continuing to be in the form that he left last season with is a good sign for this team. I'm not saying he's going to start the next few games. I still think Dane St. Clair is going to be the out and out number one until there's a conversation to be had about it. But Rocco absolutely playing the part of a first team goalkeeper, of first choice goalkeeper, had some really good saves, probably kept us in this game. We would have lost this game without him. So fantastic performance from him in the second half, some good saves. He had a double save moment, which he looked really good in, and came out for the ball. There were a couple of instances where I think he was under pressure, but handled himself well overall. And maybe it has to do with him being comfortable in this team, knowing the players in and around him. But whatever said and done, still in good form, and that's a great sign for Inter Miami.
It is so funny because last year when he got sparing minutes in the first 2/3 of the season, we treated him like a third string goalkeeper. So when he played like this, we were like, man, he looks really good for a third string goalkeeper. Now I'm like, that's just kind of what I expect from him because he has proven he's a good goalkeeper. He is a good goalkeeper. I think to your point, was it possibly a purple patch at the end of last season, or is he a young goalkeeper that's going to have ups and downs? Like that looks just like vintage when an MLS Cup form. So maybe vintage is the wrong way to describe a 22-year-old goalkeeper, but still, he looks good. So I think that is a good point. David Ruiz, I thought looked like a first team player. I should also mention, I did try and look this up at halftime. Independiente del Valle played mostly young kids and backups in the first half, and then in the second half played a couple more starters, but it was never like a full strength team. So just like Inter Miami, a lot of the young kids and rotation pieces in the first half with like 3 or 4 starter types mixed in, and then more of their serious players came on in the second half, just like Inter Miami. So in that half, I thought David Ruiz looked like a first-team player compared to a lot of kids on both teams that maybe didn't. I do think there's probably a conversation to talk about Gonzalo Lujan from a confidence perspective. I don't even want to...
Our confidence in him?
No, because I think there's a difference between playing bad and playing bad because you have no confidence. And we've seen that last year with Tadeo Allende. To me, Gonzalo Lujan today looked like a guy that didn't have confidence, and that might not matter at all, but it's probably a conversation for, I don't know. What did you think?
I think for today, I want to go back to Ruiz first. First of all, very pleased that he got the minutes. I don't think he finished the game. 60 minutes maybe in his legs. Probably the most he's played since his injury. Really good to have him back. And you said it right. He looks like a first team player. If he starts a game against the likes of Orlando City, I would not be overly concerned. I thought once again, just a broader conversation extending into Ruiz. The midfield looked good. Both the combination of Ruiz and Yannick Bright, then the combination of Rodrigo de Paul, Yannick Bright, then the combination of Rodrigo de Paul, Segovia. I thought the midfield looked decent at times and the players were doing some good stuff. Not going to read too much into it. Of course, it's a preseason game, but I wasn't overly concerned about our midfield structure. There's a couple of other players that I want to talk about, but we can keep those towards the end. Going to Gonzalo Lujan, I thought he looked fine for what he was, for what we've come to expect from him, but you might have a good point that he does look a little bit bereft of confidence. You can see when it's Gonzalo Lujan and Ian Frey in the backline, Ian Frey looks like the more mature, ready to go center back who is commanding the backline, not Gonzalo Lujan. Maybe Lujan was never that, but there were a couple of instances where he had a pass that was too short. Some players had to cover for him. And honestly, I don't particularly like Lujan as a player, but you don't want him to be in poor confidence. So that's probably the conversation we need to have here. He is a backup he is a backup center back. He'll probably get a few games here and there. But when he does get those minutes in those games, you don't want him to be bereft of confidence. You want him to be at his best possible version, even if that's not saying much. So I do hope he gets played into form or some semblance of form, even if he gets those performances off the bench, because you don't want your center half looking like he's lost out there. And that can be problematic, especially when he's brought on to close out games or towards the end of games. I don't think that's a great place to be for a center back.
Yeah, that first goal was on him. And then after that, it felt like, oh no, here we go again. And then there were some balls that he left short. I will say the pitch felt like the grass felt a little tough, so the ball wasn't skipping as well as maybe everyone is used to. But it just felt a couple balls were left short, and he just wasn't like it did feel like a lack of confidence, worse than his talent level is capable of. So, like, he is better than what we saw tonight. But to your point, like, what do you do about that? Again, we're going to talk about the transfers in and what Jorge Mas said, but the player they didn't get that they wanted was Tristan Blackman, and I think if Blackman arrives in Miami, Lujan's probably not here. So maybe there was a portion of this offseason where he thought he had to look for a new place, or he wanted a restart, or he felt the team didn't want him, or whatever. Like, that is tough on a human being, and I do feel bad for him. So hopefully this was like I don't really know how you fix it from here if you're not going to play much. So that's maybe why I don't want to talk about it, because I don't know what you do from here. So, yeah. Just moving around the rest of the lineup, the other player I really did want to talk about was Alexander Shaw in the midfield. Yeah. I thought he looked really, really impressive. Again, he looks like a first-team player compared to a lot of the guys that were on the field at that time, at least to me.
I think getting there. Absolutely getting there.
He looks like he's on the right path. The athleticism, the movement, the understanding of keeping the ball moving and that stuff. He just looks like a midfielder that's capable of playing at this level. And maybe to your point, getting there is the right where it's like, I think if you put him on an MLS pitch for 15 minutes, you're not afraid he's going to cost you the game or that he's a black hole or something. So to me, that's my biggest takeaway of this game. Is that I think Shaw, this might be the game we look back on and say, man, Shaw is something. And I'm remembering when we were in Asia and Hong Kong and Tokyo, Yannick Bright for the first time. And it's like, I think there might be something here. And I don't think Shaw's there yet, but he's 17. 2 years from now, I think he's going to be like a guy that could really be a part of this first team. So that was my biggest takeaway from this game, Alexander Shaw.
What I really liked about his game, all that you said, absolutely, but also he looked confident and presented himself for the ball. Yeah. That's what I was looking at. He didn't feel like the occasion was too big for him or he was trying to play the second fiddle. He looked like he was ready to go the full distance with this team. And again, I think he's going to come into his own eventually as my screen becomes completely shot.
He has an adult body and athleticism at this point, right? Like, I think with Santi Morales, when he was 17, he was still scrawny and skinny and like growing into himself. That's not the case with Shaw. It's more like with Kramaski when he came in at 18. He was physically ready to do this. And that's sort of how I feel about Shaw right now. Okay, those are my thoughts. Is there anyone else you want to talk about before we get to the chat?
No, I just wanted to mention the youngsters as well. They got a run out, and some of them looked decent. Like they looked like they were getting that opportunity, doing some good stuff on the pitch. The right back, I'm trying to look for his name, Ajania, I think.
Abadia?
Abadia, sorry. Yeah, left back. He grew into the game. I thought he was doing well in that second half. First half, he was a little bit maybe tentative. Second half, I thought he looked a lot more confident going forward, taking the ball in good angles and trying to be involved in the attack. So I thought decent performance from him. Santi Morales getting his goal. That was really good to see. Daniel Pinter looked like he has a nice pace on him. Didn't necessarily get involved in the attack, which I would have liked to see more of, given that he's probably further ahead in his development compared to some of the other youngsters. But overall, I thought it was good for Javi Marciano to give them a run out. And who knows, man, some of these might actually break into the first team eventually. I completely agree, though. Alexander Shaw might be the name to look out for.
Yeah. Rocco, man of the match. I thought Suarez looked a step ahead of everyone. And then there was a couple players that looked like first team players among non first team players. But for me, for the young people, the young guys, Shaw was the standout. The second half, like, if I was really tracking closely who was coming in and who was coming out, maybe we could talk about certain partnerships. But
Yeah, I was
it's an
I was
hour
lost
later,
in
and it
that
was
second
just
half.
and none of these guys are something I'm trying to learn about.
I was
So
also trying to understand what the structure was. It felt like Segovia was playing more central when he came on, which I think is a positive sign. Maybe we were playing a 4-2-3-1 of sorts with Messi as that number 10, Allende as a wide player. At some point, I thought Berterame was on the field when he wasn't. So I thought we were playing with 12 men at one point in the game, but I was mistaken. It again, the my biggest gripe from this entire preseason is not just that it was a bust, but the broadcast was atrocious. I mean the camera angles. And I will say I'm gonna miss Javi and Lazzarini. Those two have become a personal favorite of mine over the course of this preseason. They've offered a lot to my life over the last 4 games that we've been with them. So I will miss them. Sad that we're going to have to go back to Taylor Twelman, but that broadcast did not help the cause by any means.
someone in the chat will have to, or in the comments will have to tell us. I believe they are Brazilian Portuguese, and that's where the accent comes from.
I
'Cause
think
it's
one of them is
certainly not Spanish.
Italian.
Italian? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
Lazzarini, I think, is Italian. And Javi is
Anyways,
probably not Portuguese, probably Spanish, or somewhere in South America.
yeah, Brazilian Portuguese. Yeah.
Yeah.
Janet is a new member. Thank you for becoming a new member. Hacker says, I'm tired of my team. I can't remind me, can't make or create any chances inside the box. None of that mattered to me today. It was so discombobulated and disorganized and just like it didn't just feel like a preseason game. It felt like the first preseason game that comes 2 weeks before you actually start your preseason tour. It was just so disorganized. So to me,
I
like
mean,
nothing with the starters. I don't know.
I think there's some starters that I would, or potential starters that I was looking out for. Suarez, again, I was glad that he actually put in a performance, looked like a leader out there, looked like, as you said, one of the best players on the pitch in that first half, creating the most opportunities. So things like that, individual performances was what I was looking at. You didn't really have opportunities to see patterns of play emerge as such. I thought there were a couple of good line breaking passes, but you can't really read too much into the positives or the negatives either ways. I was a little concerned that the game got very physical when it didn't need to, and that's when I was like, guys, take it easy. You have a game against Orlando, which matters for points, so go easy on that. But other than that, even the positives or the negatives, yes, you can talk about them, but don't read too much into them. At the end of the day, this was not the pitch that we're going to play on regularly. The intensity is not going to be the same. The conditions aren't the same as competitive football. So let's just treat this as a preseason game, probably the first preseason game of the preseason, and then move on from this.
There was one moment in the second half where Berterame was on the field as a left-sided midfielder with Suarez and Messi as the front two, and it was 7 minutes or something. I don't know, but like I wouldn't even have mentioned it, but if there's something to put in the back of your mind is, okay, maybe Mascherano is willing to try this. Berterame is a left-sided midfielder. You can't pay $15 million for him to play there. You just can't do it. So, and I'm the biggest Suarez defender, but like you can't move Berterame just to find a way to get Suarez into this 11. I don't think. EMZ says Lord Lujan played all 90 minutes. Here's what I'll say. I did think the minute distribution did tip Mascherano's hand at who's going to start on Sunday. None of the players that are quote unquote in the conversation to start for Sunday played more than 45 minutes, with the one exception being Facundo Moura, who played about 60. So if that tells us anything, I think it might mean Ian Frey is going to start at right back on Sunday, because none of the other guys that would start, Yannick Bright, DePaul, Messi, Berterame, Allende, Mikael, Maxi Falcone, none of them played more than 45 minutes in this game, except for Facundo Moura. So maybe that's the one thing that from the starters that you can take away.
No, that's a really good point.
Sean says the kids in the first half looked good. Yeah, we talked about Shaw, and Luis says a Shaw left back. No, he's the central midfielder that fit in. I should mention David Ajala did not travel with the team. There was a personal matter that came up, so he didn't end up making it on the trip. I think if he does make the trip, he starts the game next to Yannick Bright, and then Alexander Shaw is the guy who comes in that second half when Converse comes on. So A, an opportunity for Shaw that I think he took advantage of, but B, I do think Ajala would have played 60, 65 minutes in this game if he had made the trip. And then the
I
other
want
player
him
I
to
should
hit the
mention.
ground running, man. I want to see Ajala on the pitch. It feels like we haven't even seen him once, and we have, but it's not been nearly enough. I would like to see him as it'll be like a new signing because he is a new signing.
Well, so is like all the other guys that have played one
Yeah.
competitive game with Inter Miami. The other player that is in the sort of regular rotation that didn't play today was Matteo Sovetti. Apparently, he had some sort of ankle knock over the last couple of days and was sort of questionable whether he was going to play or not. He did make the trip. He was on the bench, but did not end up getting any time. And again, if you have something, there's no reason to run out there in a game like this.
Absolutely not.
AquaCat says, in over 50 years of watching football, I've never seen two teams in the same color.
I still remember it was God knows how long ago when Man United was playing and they had to switch their kits at the halftime because Sir Alex Ferguson was so pissed off he couldn't tell his team apart from the other opposition. So he had them change kits in the middle of the game. I felt bad for the commentators because they made a point about it at least 5 times in the first half and 5 times in the second half, pointing out that both the teams are playing in similar kits with just very slight differences. And I'm pretty sure they weren't able to tell who was who. I thought it was fine after a point, but it's wild. It's wild.
I think if we had the starters from the get-go, it would have been very easy. And it only took maybe 5 minutes to like get accustomed to it because there was a lot of players that we aren't particularly familiar with.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it ended up being that big of a deal from a
I got used to it.
from a viewer's perspective. Now on the field, I would imagine it's even easier, but who knows? Icam says also Suarez's false nine is the best way to use him this season. That is something we saw. I thought when you had a front two of Santi and Luis Suarez came back and was the creator, and Santi was the guy making runs in behind, and Daniel Pinto was more of that right-sided midfielder Allende role, making runs in behind. But he was sort of trying to be the creative piece that glued it all together. It's just not going to work alongside Messi and Berterame, which is the whole problem for Suarez. Like he still has talent, but if you build the whole team around him, he can do it. But if you have to build the team around Messi, the fit just isn't the same. Jay says Miami has 3 weeks to figure things out, or they'll get bounced out of CCC by Nashville, who are looking better. Nashville has looked good this year so far.
Yeah, I'm not surprised though. I said it after the game against LAFC. In Miami, it's okay not to have won that first game given the circumstances in the preseason that we went through. But after 20 days, if you continue to play the same way and are unable to figure it out, it could come back to bite you. We've got 2 games against Nashville that are going to be basically the ones where you have to be in your full form. So let's hope by then Javi Marciano and the coaching staff have figured it out, the team players have figured it out, and we're going on all cylinders because that's what you need to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Nashville scored 11 goals in their first 3 competitive games this season, but 7 of those came against a Canadian Premier League team, and they scored 4 against New England. So let's just hold off on crowning them. They will have more competitive games over the next, well, they play Dallas this weekend, but next week they'll play Minnesota. Marco says, this is a new team. Forget about the team that won MLS. They need to reintegrate and rework all of the lines. Listen, this has been the conversation of the preseason. Now it's time to go get better game by game. I thought going in that this was an opportunity to get better. They didn't take it that way by putting their players in positions to do that, which is fine. But it is what it is.
There was no footballing plan going into this game. It was let's just get it out of the way, sort of a plan, and protect our players for the game against Orlando. Also, is Rocco's name Ricardo Rios Novo? Because that's what the commentator said. So I was like, who? So Rocco's not his real name. So Rocco Blocco is a misnomer.
I think it's Rocco.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't have any
We
reason
stick
to
to
think it's
Rocco,
Ricardo.
man. We stick
Yeah.
to Rocco.
Lee says
I
two
don't trust
things.
my
No,
man Harvey. I don't trust my man Harvey.
two things. Lee says two things. No, Allen can't start, and Allende needs to shave off that bad mojo mustache. Again, like, no, Allen didn't put a foot wrong on Saturday night, and I'm not taking anything away from this game. So I have no idea where the no Allen criticism is coming from. And then today, Allende, we've seen him play like 40 minutes of out, like running out in the middle of nothing with no structure. Neither player, I think, is worthy of even commenting from this game, in my opinion.
Did he not have the mustache during his playoff run?
Well, it's the whole like
Yeah,
evil
it's the goatee sort of it, yeah.
But the thing is, if you break playoff records, you get to become the bad guy. Like, I think he earned it. I don't know if he can take it. It's like Inter Miami not taking the star off. Like, one player can't be like, I'm taking the star off the Jet. Like, no, you are the record holder. You have to be the evil guy. Luis says no Ajala, which, again, he had a personal issue. Ruiz played well as Morales, and that player's shot was really good. Very interesting. Everybody says DSC needs time. We got to talk about Dane St. Clair, but not tonight. And the goalkeeper situation.
Why is it always the goalkeeper situation, Scotty? Why? Every time. I thought we sorted it out, and here we are again talking about it. Why can't our number one goalkeeper just do number one goalkeeping things? And why can't our number two goalkeeper just do number two goalkeeping things so that we can just play them in their appropriate tournaments and be happy with that position? Sorry, mini rant over.
No, the thing that upsets me so much is that our goalkeeper play was so bad last year, and I felt like I was the only person that wanted to talk about it. No one wanted to talk about it. And now we've played one game of competitive football with the reigning goalkeeper of the year, and everyone needs to talk about it. The difference between what last year was and what this year was is like crazy to me. Again, conversation for another time. Hacker says our team has lost chance creating moments. The game looks so bad. Opponent's team has created more goal chance created compared to Miami. Sorry if I didn't read that quite right. There's just nothing for me to take out of this type of game. We'll see what they look like on Sunday against a bad Orlando City. And again, the one game that did count and mattered was against LAFC. They did not create enough chances. I don't think that's any question. We talked about it. We kind of think we know why that happened. LAFC is a really good team. Orlando City, not that good. Really not that good. Did not look good this weekend. They might be terrible. Might not be if they get Antoine Griezmann. We'll see. Let's see what Inter Miami looks like against them and their 20-year-old goal defender that's supposed to be a star that might be their version of like Redondo. Okay. Anything else from this game? I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat quickly because I do want to talk about some of the other things going on around Inter Miami.
No, I'm just glad it's behind us. That's all. It took a while to get going. Honestly, it took all my willpower to pay attention to that game. And after a point, it became a bit of a farce. I'm just glad that we came out of that game with no major alien abductions. And even though we ended up that game with so many fans on the pitch, that was hard to see. But it's all good. We won, 2 of our 4 preseason games? Right? Drew 1, lost 1, won 2, which is a great place to be. And now we can focus on the regular season.
BD is saying I paid $5 for one football and then found it on YouTube in better quality and announcers for free. If that is the case, that is kind of upsetting because they got me too.
I did the same. Oh no.
Cringe says, "Hey gentlemen, the game was decent. The young players did well. Today I was back doing Tadeo things. He should have banged that Messi assist. I'm not even sure. I mean, I was in and out in the second half, but I'm not even sure what moment Messi put up for him. The one moment I remember from Messi is the should have been penalty on Bertarame that I thought looked really nice. But anyways. Tunde says, does Mascherano get fired if we're eliminated in the first round? Just an interesting thought.
No, he does not.
No.
No.
I will say, not Inter Miami related as we're transitioning, but River Plate's manager, Gallardo, is like supposed to be a really good manager. And I guess he's stepping down from River Plate. That feels like if Inter Miami had an opening, that would be the type of manager that could fit well. They don't have an opening right now, and Mascherano I think is fine for the foreseeable future. But yeah, maybe someone in MLS will end up with Marcelo Gallardo. Okay. Takeaways from this game heading into Orlando City. I think we're going to go with the same starting 11 as last week. I think the only change that, well, actually, the only change that could have happened, the two changes that could still happen, Facundo Moura for Ian Frey. I think that was telegraphed by this game that he's going to go with Ian Frey because Ian Frey only played 45 minutes. The other one is Tadeo Allende and Matteo Silvetti. Silvetti has this ankle issue, I guess, kept him out of this game. Doesn't seem serious, so I'm imagining he will be available on Sunday. But if they don't want him to go, it would be an opportunity to give Allende a start. And I'm expecting a 4-4-2 against Orlando with the same 11, potentially with Allende instead of Silvetti.
Yeah, I think telegraphed is the right word. I believe Javi Mascherano is going to start all the players that he can start from that LAFC game and then make a couple of adjustments. I believe Ian Frey is going to start. It makes no sense for Facundo Moura to start if he's already played that many minutes today. And then today, Allende, I wouldn't mind actually getting a run out. Silvetti has looked lackluster in the last few games that he's played the preseason as well as the LAFC game. Maybe it's an ankle knock that keeps him out, but Allende probably will start. And that could be a potential competition that we see over the next few weeks once both are available and fit. So against Orlando, go smash them 5-0, man. That's how you need to bounce back from that LAFC game and honestly bring some goodwill back into the fans. Because right now I feel like we've had such a teetering preseason, hasn't been convincing by any means, very ill-planned. The football on the pitch has been quite lackluster as well. And then you have the LAFC loss to add to that. I think you need a get-back win. And what better way to get one back against your rivals who aren't doing particularly well, and you could potentially smash them over the weekend. So hopefully we are talking about Inter Miami victory on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can give me like 10 more seconds. 2 years ago, we came into the preseason with Tata Martino, and it was Messi's first year, a full year. And we looked bad in the preseason. We were playing that 3-5-2, and it was really ugly, and we were not creating a lot, and we looked really poor. And we get a home win on opening day against Real Salt Lake team that just didn't play very well, and Diego Gomez was
2-0.
fantastic in that game.
Yeah.
We went to LA Galaxy. We got a 1-1 draw where we looked really bad, and Messi kind of saved us at the end. But we got crushed by LA Galaxy and then just had Messi magic. And then we came home, played Orlando City, won 5-0, and never looked back. This team never stopped scoring. So maybe a game against Orlando City to get the goal scorers right is exactly what this team needs. It is going to be in Orlando, and Inter Miami doesn't have a great history there, but I think against this particular Orlando City team, we might see some fireworks this weekend. And as BD says, if we don't, maybe then it will be time to worry because that team does not have the defense. And yeah. Okay. there was a media day yesterday, and Jorge Mas was there, Mascherano was there, and they were answering questions from the press. And I think one of the most interesting things to come out of it was Jorge Mas saying, and I would like to quote him if I can. Of course I can't because it's just a video. That they're probably not going to sign anyone else. They went into the offseason with 7 targets, and they got 6 of them. And I was trying to figure out who those 6 were. I do feel like I've got the right list. But the big takeaway, they don't have any immediate plans to go get another player. Those 7, I believe, Dane St. Clair, Facundo Moura, Sergio Reguilon, David Ajala, Mikael, Tristan Blackman, and Tadeo Allende. And of course, they got 6 of them and did not get Tristan Blackman. If I'm right about that, that means Berterame was not on that original list. We talked about this when they got Berterame. That felt like a sort of mid-off-season pivot that they went for, and I'm excited for it, and I think it's going to be great. But it did not feel like the plan when he was talking about competing for the CONCACAF Champions Cup the day after the MLS Cup victory or the hour after the MLS Cup victory. So here's my first thing. I don't even think their latest and greatest signing was one of their original 7 that they planned. But it also is an update today or yesterday of what they're thinking. How does that make you feel?
To give you the exact quote from Jorge Mas, and it's a very telling quote. The transfer window is still open, but I don't foresee any more signings. We're happy and satisfied with the squad. Berterame is a great addition. We managed to keep Allende, and out of the 7 targets we signed 6. Almost feels like Berterame was out of those 7 targets that they had, so you might be absolutely spot on here. I don't know if he wasn't part of the plan. I do think they had an eye on him, but he may not have been a priority. They were probably going to go for a striker in the summer, considering the 6 out of 7 signings that Jorge Mas has mentioned, but he probably became available and they thought now is the opportunity to bring him in. So don't know if it was a pivot, don't know if it was change of plans, whatever it was, we ended up getting Berterame, and now this is it. This is our reality, and I think it was a good choice at the end of the day. We'll see how it plays out in the summer, but 6 out of 7 targets, you get them. That's, I think, a fantastic return. Very well done if that's the case.
I agree, and my point in saying Berterame I don't think it was part of the original plan is because I am explaining that sometimes things change and opportunities arise, and that could still happen.
And sometimes you have tier 1 and tier 2. Berterame maybe was on a tier 2 in case certain things didn't progress. They thought, okay, Blackman's not happening. Let's invest the funds somewhere else. And they thought of bringing in someone like Berterame. So he may have been on the plan, but maybe plan B rather than plan A or plan A minus.
Again, the reason I'm saying that is because I think there's still an opportunity for plans to change again, which means that just because they said yesterday they're not expecting to sign anyone else doesn't mean an opportunity won't arise. I think back to 2024 and Matias Rojas, I don't think was on their radar in January. And by the end of March, he was like a guy they were going to get as soon as available. So things can still change. I want to be clear about that, and that's why I brought that up. But the other thing is the one guy they didn't get publicly was Tristan Blackman, and they did not get another replacement, which means their plan was to get 2 starting center backs, which goes back into our conversation about Gonzalo Lujan. And I think if you felt you had Tristan Blackman, Mikael, Falcone, Noah Allen as your center backs, you'd feel really, really good, and then maybe you would have the opportunity to move on a guy like Gonzalo Lujan, who is on a lot of money and a big wage and all that stuff. So it all kind of checks out with everything we saw happen over the course of the offseason. But again, center back feels like the one place that they are thinking we still could have used another player, and maybe if there is a opportunity, that is where I would think they may be willing to pull the trigger.
to be a fly on the wall for those sort of conversations to see how the front office, Jorge Mas, Javi Mascherano, are actually thinking about this, because I do still think there's opportunity to strengthen in a couple of places. Maybe one in attack, maybe, well, after David Ruiz today, I think we should be okay in midfield. But
And Alexander Shaw.
seeing Alexander Shaw as well, but seeing the way the few games have played out in preseason and that LAFC game, I think we're maybe problematic in attack and not so much in defense. But as you said, seems like they think they can upgrade in defense. So those two other areas that I think we probably will get an upgrade in if there's another incoming. I doubt it though. I think it's asking for too much. And now they're in a position where only if it makes business sense, the market opportunity is right, and they think it's going to be a good upgrade and makes sense for the roster in terms of its health, then they'll probably pull the trigger on it. But I do still think we might be a little bit light on the attack. I would have loved a swinger, and a little bit light in the back line.
The thing is, I think if you feel like you're one center back away from winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup, you do whatever it takes to get him. Maybe that's not how the team feels right now. Maybe because they feel like they're already good enough. Maybe because they feel like they're more than one center back away. Maybe they aren't in love with some of the signings they signed this offseason. And like, it feels too early to say that from our perspective, but they have been watching these guys day in and day out. And maybe it's just a health thing and it's not a talent thing, like a Sergio Reguilon, right? But just something to keep in mind. And then to that point, there is clearly value in keeping flexibility for the summer when everyone, all the stars around the world are going to be in the U.S. and they're going to come to the World Cup, or they're going to be watching U.S. The World Cup in the U.S. and maybe they're out of contract and they're thinking, I might want to go play in the MLS where there's all this excitement and pent up energy about soccer. Have an extra senior team roster slot at that point in time might be something Inter Miami might find useful. So there's value in that too.
Casemiro, do. Casemiro, do.
I wasn't sure they were ever going to sign a Brazilian player with Messi on the team. And then they signed Mikael. So, who knows? Anything could happen.
I think he's
everyone wants
Europe, man. He wants to stay in Europe.
Everyone wants a midfielder. Why wouldn't? Well, the real thing about Casemiro is Inter Miami can offer him a TAM contract. Or, most teams would offer him a TAM contract because he's a defensive midfielder. And I feel like Palmeiras or Flamengo would give him a much, much, much bigger contract to go be a Brazilian star in Brazil. And by the way, some of those Brazilian clubs are loaded. So I don't know, just my thoughts. Okay. A couple other things that I thought were interesting that came out of these press conferences. There was talk about this game being played in South Korea.
Could you imagine having to stay up at like 3 a.m. watching this game, listening to Javi and Lazzarini and losing our absolute minds? Jeez. Well, I'm glad it didn't happen in South Korea. Let's just say that.
Yeah, can you imagine having to come back in the middle of between the LAFC and Orlando City game on a trip to South Korea? That would have been unbelievable.
Oh, phenomenal.
But even just the way that preseason games have gone over the last 2 years, it felt like they really learned something from that first trip to Asia that they didn't want to repeat. And then
this happened.
It feels to me like they want to come home after every game. And the 2-week trip to Asia didn't facilitate that. Whereas if you go to South America, you can just fly back that night. It's, it can be 5-6 hours, but it's not 15 hours and then having to go back 15 hours. It's just like,
it's interesting because preseason is almost as much about the team spending time together in a bubble and being away from home and being in a neutral setting all together, so that builds chemistry, it builds camaraderie, team spirit, and all of that, as much as it is about the football on the pitch. So interesting that may be something that they're considering, that we don't want to travel so much and be away from home for that long.
Depends if your star is a 37-year-old that doesn't want to spend
Yeah.
2 weeks in hotel beds, right? Especially for meaningless friendlies, right? Okay, last topic. Orlando City was awful, just awful this weekend. They played a bunch of U22 players, and defensively they were terrible. They got beat up by the New York Red Bulls, I believe. Was it the Red Bulls? I don't think it was the Red Bulls. Hold on. And we get to play them Sunday. I think this is the worst we've ever seen Orlando City. And now they might sign Antoine Griezmann. They did. They lost to the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls played 3 kids that were 17 and under, including a 16-year-old. And they still didn't just beat Orlando City. They kind of whooped them. Is this not the strangest partnership you've heard yet of a team going after a European star? An Orlando City team clearly building their identity around Brazilian young players, trying to reset their roster after they lost Cesar Araujo and some key pieces, Facundo Torres, over the last couple seasons. A coach that is stuck in his ways after being there for so long. And then they're just going to bring in 34-year-old, 35-year-old Antoine Griezmann, surrounded by all these players. What is happening? And is it going to work?
A Frenchman walks into a bachata bar and starts reciting philosophy. I'm not surprised. Griezmann is a valuable asset. If they manage to bring him in, I think that's a big plus for them and their brand. I'm not overly concerned about it. I don't know if you are, but I think, yeah, sure. Griezmann coming in would be a good thing for the league, would be fine for Orlando, but I don't think it uplifts them into the same territory as a Vancouver or a Cincinnati or LA Galaxy or LAFC. I think they're still going to be a tier lower than that because I don't know how he fits into their
Well, they could
structure.
they could still be on the Galaxy's level. That they didn't look particularly good this weekend.
Yeah, Galaxy is pretty bad themselves.
Here's the thing. I was thinking about this as this was all unfolding. Last year, LAFC wanted him desperately, and they spent a year building a roster for him. And they brought in Hugo Lloris, and they brought in Giroud, and they were like going with this whole French thing. And obviously, Denis Bouanga, speaks French, and like it was going to be in LA what Miami has with this Argentine Messi core, except French. And he said no, and he stuck with Atletico Madrid for 6 months.
No, he said no.
See, instead, they get Heung-min Son. It works out fantastically for them, for LAFC. 6 months later, he's not really starting every game at Atletico Madrid anymore, and he now feels like, to me, he just wants to get to the MLS with whoever will take him, which is how Orlando City came in because they have a DP spot. But they are not a contender. It's not a flashy city. I don't know if you've been to Orlando, but like it's not.
Twice.
It's not a place you want to spend more than 3 days. Trust me.
What do you mean? There's Disney World there.
Okay, fine. You don't want to spend more than 5 days there.
Yeah.
And it's like not a big market, and it's not a team that's on the verge of competing. Like, last year we saw Thomas Müller go to Vancouver, which is also not, this prime destination in the MLS, but they were the finalists for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They had a winning team and a great coach, and they were like preparing to be something. And now he's just at Orlando, and now Griezmann's going to Orlando City. The whole thing is weird to me.
I don't think it's going to be as much of a success as people are thinking it would be. I'm not even sure how Griezmann is as a player right now. Of course, still really good in Europe, but hasn't necessarily played that much for Atletico, based on what you say. How will he translate to the MLS? Maybe. Here's the thing. Here's how I'm thinking about it. I feel like Griezmann would be a great player if he has somebody to play with. I don't know if this Orlando team has that second player that Griezmann can play off of. It's the same with Son and Bouanga, right? Son would be fantastic regardless, but it's elevated as a project because they had these two players who were working so well together. Vancouver also has some really good players around Müller. They're not just dependent on him as a as their linchpin. Same with, well, Messi is different because he's in a different stratosphere. But I do think Orlando may need to surround Griezmann with the right pieces. And at least this season, they don't have those. Maybe in the off season, they do something that elevates them. Maybe in the summer. But I won't be overly concerned right now, at least.
Yeah, Tunde says in the chat, Griezmann's still a quality player in La Liga. Like I think he'd come in and be a good player, but we've seen you have to be in a good situation too, and it feels like Orlando City is sort of at the beginning of a new rebuild. And
but maybe this is their Messi's first half of the project, right? Like the first 6 months where we didn't necessarily have the right pieces around him, and then they brought in Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, and then Messi. Miami went into a whole new phase.
That's the point. They brought in Busquets at the same time, and Jordi Alba at the same time, and Diego Gomez at the same time, and Aviles and Facundo Farias. Like they reset the whole roster really when Messi arrived, and it doesn't feel like Orlando City's in a position to do that. It feels like Orlando City just bought all their pieces 6 weeks ago without this in mind. So I don't know. I think it'll be good, but I agree with you. I think it is tough. It is tough. But
I'm just glad we're playing them before he comes in. So that way at least one of those games will be out of the system. And then the next one we'll play at home at the new stadium. So
the Barcelona fans in the chat will have to let me know. But I think that Messi and Griezmann weren't like a good partnership or something when they were at
Griezmann never worked
I think
out
I've
at
heard
Barcelona.
That. So it is interesting how paralleling Orlando City and Inter Miami would be if you have Griezmann versus Messi and you have Maxime Crépeau in goal for Orlando City and Dane St. Clair in goal for Inter Miami is the two Canadian goalkeepers that are trying to win the starting job for the Canadian national team at the World Cup, and all these young Brazilians versus all our young Argentines. It is like, except ours feels like it makes sense and theirs feels like it's just smashed together.
Except ours have a star on their chest. Theirs don't.
And 3 years of chemistry, right? Yeah.
That being said, watch us lose to Orlando City on Sunday.
Oh, dude, I watched the game. I was watching the highlights of Orlando City's game, and I was thinking to myself, they're going to fire Gonzalo Pineda this season. Oscar Pereira this season. Like, they're resetting new sporting director. Like, he's going to get fired at some point this season. And then 2 days later, they're getting Antoine Griezmann. So, what do I know?
We're just a bunch of bozos.
Yeah. Last summer, there was 3 big names that came to MLS: Son, Thomas Muller, and Rodrigo de Paul. And the track record for big name stars over the previous 2 or 3 years before that actually hasn't been that good. That was a real reset into quality, and maybe Miami got the worst of those 3 if we're being totally honest.
Yeah.
Olivier Giroud, Marco Reus, like these guys did not work in the MLS. Or haven't really worked in the MLS. Obviously, Giroud's already gone. Royce is just been a huge disappointment, I think, for LA Galaxy fans, aside from the one game he replaced Ricky Puig to help them win the Cup. But it is not the automatic success that it was, I think, or nearly as automatic as it was 5-7 years ago. That said, I do think Griezmann's still a good player.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be good for the league.
Anything else on your mind?
No, it's getting late. It's past my bedtime. I think I'm ready to go to bed and start the weekend soon enough. And then, well, we're playing on Sunday this week, so we'll see you guys again on Sunday, I guess. Right?
Yeah, Pepto says, apparently these guys think the midfield looks fine. Do you want to have a 4-minute conversation on the midfield real quick?
Yes. My expectations for the midfield have been quite low, especially because we already play with a handicapped version of the midfield. 2 men in the middle, I think in most MLS games is problematic in playing 5 feet away from the starting line, basically. But what I've seen with the Yannick Bright and Rodrigo de Paul midfield, at least in the preseason and in the LAFC game, athletically it's better, but also I think it's covering more ground and doing better than I expected it to. I thought Rodrigo de Paul has probably been the standout player in the preseason. In terms of consistency, he's looked good. He looked good in the LAFC game as well. Yannick Bright has been looking good, doing things that he does really well. Of course, it's not perfect, but long story short, my expectations for the midfield were low, and I think they've done better than I would have given them credit for.
Yeah, I watched every ball progression from the LAFC game, and I thought Rodrigo de Paul and Yannick Bright did exactly what you'd want from them.
It's breaking down in the final third.
Yeah, yes, it was a lack. It was Messi not being on the same. Well, not. I don't want to blame that. It was Silvetti and Bertarame not being on the same page as Messi, but the three of them just not working together. If you want to complain that a 4-4-2 with just the double pivot in the midfield is insufficient, we would agree with you. We would absolutely agree with you and advocate for them to go to a three-man midfield. But as long as they're going to play in a 4-4-2, we're going to talk about it. And BD says in the chat that Rodrigo de Paul did have the blunder, and that is true. But aside from that, and especially I think the big concern for everyone was ball progression through the midfield. And I thought they were the standout for Inter Miami, was their ability to get the ball forward. And if you go rewatch the game, I think you'll be impressed.
When in the second half we had Segovia sit more central as well, it looked even better. That I thought looked like a complete midfield. Again, it broke down in the final third. We weren't able to penetrate the box. We weren't able to get that final pass into the striker. But the midfield itself was looking a lot more functional and well balanced, which hasn't been the case under Javier Mascherano for long periods of time.
Pepto says RDP is our best playmaker after Messi and Suarez, and you guys don't see this as a concern. Well, few things. First of all, this is an $18 million midfielder. No, I don't think it's a concern if he's your second best playmaker. Second, I don't think we can say whether he's a better playmaker than Matteo Silvetti or Herman Bertarame or Talasco Segovia at this point in time. Or Sergio Reguilon. I mean, we'll see what Sergio Reguilon is. So, yeah, it's getting late. The comment section is getting a little weird. So we're gonna close it off there. It's been an hour. Guys, this was the midweek episode. We'll be back for the pregame show on Sunday. Orlando City. It's a rivalry. This is a big game.
It's a big game.
This is out of the way.
Okay.
Now that this is out of the way, I can get excited for that game.
I can put it very simply for you. If Inter Miami performs really well against Orlando and smashes them, I think we're kind of back. But this performance against Orlando is going to tell us a lot. It's going to tell us a lot. If we look poor against Orlando, we're in for a long season. We're in for, like, that's when I'll stop panicking a little bit.
Wrong. You're so wrong. This team has one good performance from us being all the way bought in. 100%. No doubt about it.
But also one bad performance from us just giving up the tools and being like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, we will see you then. Hope you had a lovely time, and it's been a pleasure. See you guys at the pregame show. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.